Welcome to the Marshall Pruett Podcast, presented by Cooper Tires. My guest this episode is Jackie Heinricher, one of IMSA's newest entrants, also one of its newest drivers in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Jackie, along with the Meyer-Shank team, announced at Petit Le Mans that they will be entering a full-season Acura NSX GT3 effort next season. Catherine Legg will be her co-driver. And for the Rolex 24 at Daytona, they're going to have a truly awesome lineup with Jackie, with Kat, with Anna Beatriz, a.k.a. Bia, and also pal Simona Di Silvestro. I really am looking forward to that. And also Jackie's full season, her first full season in big cars, if you want to call it that. I've seen her race previously somewhat in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series, one of IMSA's support series, and this will be a big learning curve for her, which she realizes. She is a true a gentlewoman driver, absolute definition of someone coming in, loving the sport, having the ability to take part in it, having been a success as a businesswoman, and also bringing in a really impressive new sponsor in Caterpillar. And I love this and what they're doing next year, because it is a high ambition effort, someone achieving their dreams of doing this, and also winning on the business side by bringing a big company along with them for the first time. We don't get to see that very often. So I said, you know what? I don't really know Jackie. I have an affinity for what she has done so far, and certainly for what she intends to do and hopes to do with Michael Shank, with Jim Meyer, and that awesome Ohio-based team next year. Figured this is a prime opportunity, though, since if I don't know Jackie, I figure a lot of you probably don't know enough about her. So let's sit down and talk about her origins, where she's from in the country, what kind of household she was raised in, whether racing was a part of that, and just learn about her, all the things she's achieved. And as you'll hear towards the end, I became a much bigger fan of Jackie just by listening to all that she's done and realizing that, wow, this woman has spent the vast majority of her life kicking a lot of ass. So that's why we decided to do a My Racing Life and Career interview instead of something a little bit shorter, because I definitely think she is someone who IMSA fans are going to enjoy going along this ride with in 2019. You know, you can get every episode of the Marshall Pruett Podcast on iTunes, on Podbean, on Google Play, on Spotify, on Stitcher, a whole bunch of aggregators, and on our Marshall Pruett Podcast Facebook page. We are not that far away, friends. We are not that far away from cracking the 2 million download threshold since I started this podcast in May of 2016, and we would also exceed my goal of having 1 million downloads for 2018 and possibly achieve that by end of October, early November. So pretty cool stuff. And also have my friend John Troth, web designer, working on the new MarshallPruettPodcast.com site, which will become the new home for everything related to the podcast and all 400 plus episodes I've posted so far. All right, off we go with Jackie Heinricher. I hope you enjoy her time that she spent with us, knowing that she's incredibly busy trying to run a company as a CEO and also to get ready to live her dreams at IMSA next year. So Jackie, obviously amazing to read about your plans for next year, everything you've put in place with Meyer-Shank Racing, wonderful new sponsor, all of these things that has led to quite a few people and fans already saying, awesome, great. Who's Jackie, though? We don't really know her, but she's going to become a part of our family. So I guess, as I tend to think of it, I'd rather not start with the most recent stuff. I'd rather go back to where you grew up. What was that environment like? What did your parents do? What was the world that you came into?
Well, wow, thank you, Marshall. First of all, great to talk with you. Just by way of background, I grew up in Washington State, and my father actually worked for Shell Oil And when I was a kid, we were in California for a period of time with his position with Shell, and then moved back to our home state of Washington. And I had a, regular childhood. I wouldn't say I'm a tomboy, but I certainly did plenty of things that were fun, and my parents have always been really supportive in whatever I've done. And when I was young, my father had a fascination with bamboo and always had it in our garden, and I guess that's something that I played in when I was young. And by the time I was age 12, I had a vision to work with bamboo, and fast forward, I ended up going to graduate school for science. I'm a scientist.
Oh, wow.
And
was there a specific area within science or multiple disciplines that appealed to you?
My early foray into science really was with fisheries. And I had a fellowship to study fisheries at a university, Tennessee Tech in Cookeville, Tennessee. My first job out of graduate school was running the reservoir fishery program in Tennessee.
Wow.
But not, and really amazing job, and I think probably one of the first women to work with a program like that. And not long after that, I moved. I did my position there, and then chose to move back to Washington State and establish my company.
So, was motor racing, the automotive world, at all something? I mean, was it a part of your life at all as a kid growing up? I mean, out here on the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest, there is a fine tradition, sports cars in particular, with a really big culture going back to the early days of foreign car imports and such. But curious if that was part of your world and culture growing up, or something you found later in life.
No, not part of it. We were, as a family, we certainly went to all the big, hydroplane races. I had my own mini bike that I rode around.
Oh, cool.
And my father and brother had some cool cars, but I was not raised in a family that did anything in racing. I came to racing late in my life.
So of the couple of things that I've come to appreciate about you already, Jackie, it's that we look at STEM today as being a big, call it new or modern concept, and it's something where we're trying to get boys and girls, young men, young women, just trying to make that world of STEM an ingrained part of culture. And it's just cool to think that while that's a modern construct, you were a few decades ahead of the curve here, it sounds like, because you were going down that trail on your own long before there were STEM initiatives. Was that also just a natural fit for you? Because I love the sound of just the diversity in education and goals from the outset.
Yeah, I don't exactly know where my interest came from, or I guess I've always been fascinated with the natural world, and I've always been interested in even from the time I was quite young, and chemistry sets and those sorts of things. But to your point, having a vision to do something with science from such a young age, and then growing up and pursuing that, to the point of having a company, a biotechnology company, I reflect back that I didn't really have many women role models, either as CEOs running a science company, founder, CEO, or as just a scientist. And so I think just to sort of get to your question, I think reflecting back, it was kind of a remarkable journey, and one that I never even thought twice about. So it was really obviously part of my interest in my scholastically to be involved in science. I found science amazing. I still do today, and I'm still active in science.
And I guess what comes to mind in looking at your personal fit, that thing inside you that drove you in this direction, it wasn't lost on me that last weekend at Petit Le Mans, as the life of Don Panos was being celebrated, founder of the American Le Mans Series, creator of Petit Le Mans, someone whose success in life was found in the biotech world and the pharmaceutical world. Maybe it was just me being a nerd, but I did appreciate the fact that on a weekend we are saying farewell to Don, knowing the world that he came from into racing. Here we are welcoming you full-time into IMSA, which is, something that he bought, something that he helped reestablish. Here we have Jackie coming in, who's been a success in the biotech world, coming into racing. So I don't know if Dr. P was reaching down, handing you the baton, but I thought there was a really nice message there as well, that, hey, guess what? There's a legacy that's being continued here, maybe even if not everybody knows that we have someone new coming in from a similar discipline.
Well, that's quite an honor. I never had the opportunity to meet him, but everything I understand about him was quite remarkable in his professional career, and of course everything that he did for racing. And so I'm honored to hear you say that. And it was an incredible weekend for me. It represented years of work, and it was a very proud moment. So I really appreciate that, Marshall.
Let's, if we can, talk a little bit about the biotech company that you founded, because that to me as well it's another core element, I believe, of who you are and what you do, because like many in the world of sports car racing, you are coming in as a success in the business world, who obviously wants to be, have equal success in the motor racing world, but you are coming in on the foundation of hard work and having a vision, creating something, making it a success, and that then being a springboard to allow you to do other fun things as well, like drive race cars. But let's talk a bit about your business, what led you to found your company, and what you do there, because like I said, I think that's a key part for folks to understand.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier in this conversation. I had a vision around utilizing bamboo as an alternative natural resource. I had the idea when I was quite young, and once I was out of school and completing my first job in the workforce, I was determined to establish my company, and I did. I basically, in Washington State, started my company in my garage and grew it to a significant sized company with several hundred employees. And essentially, I went on to do many other plants, but bamboo has always been the core. But I took a resource, learned about all the qualities of a resource, published many papers on the qualities of the resource, and learned how to find ways to dialogue with companies that could use it, and was successful in doing so. So bamboo is a very good replacement for things like tissue and paper towels and things that might otherwise be using 100-year-old trees. This is a very fast-growing resource, and so I've managed to find success in a niche that was ahead of its time, and even today, Marshall, it's getting even more attention as we face the challenges that we're facing with our planet.
So you have this business that you've grown, and what are some of the stereotypes? Hey, away from the office, I love to golf. I fly planes. There are some fairly traditional things that you will find folks like to do to wind down. I love the fact that you said, no, I want to wind up, actually. I want to go really, really fast. Where did that passion start to form, Jackie? Because I ask because if I'm thinking of bamboo, I'm thinking at least, again, stereotype of peace, tranquility. That doesn't necessarily, mindset-wise, lead me straight into a screaming Lamborghini V10 Super Trofeo car or something like that you've driven. Where did this passion for cars and racing start to come in? I think being an entrepreneur, if you think about it, it's really, you're working to win, right? You're working to use your mind to find, ways to win, whether it's in a business deal or, changing the way we use, products. And science as well lends to understanding a lot about what's happening in a race car, how to dissect things. So, but I really got into it by accident. Somebody, I literally would drive back and forth to my home every day, and that was the extent of my driving. And somebody gave me a opportunity to go to a weekend car program, and I have to say I wasn't excited to go, but I eventually went since it was a gift, and loved it. And I think that really wound me up about the challenges of driving, and the challenges to succeed in driving in every way imaginable. And what was it inside the car that stood out? Was it the physical forces at play? Was it the speed? Was it understanding tires and grip? In and among the personal challenges you mentioned, I want to be the best that I can. What were some of the more visceral aspects of that first introduction to high-speed motoring that hooked you? I always love to find out what those things were. It could have been a sight or a sound or something that you felt.
Well, I almost didn't. I almost didn't get in a race car because really the first time I went, I was invited to Sonoma to get into a Ferrari Challenge car. And so I flew myself there, and I rented a car, and I got to the track, and it was just, it was really overwhelming for me because there were really no women there for sure. I'd never been in a car like that, and I just remember being in my rental car, started being sick to my stomach, and not able to pry myself out of my car. And eventually somebody came over and said, "Are you going to sit in the car? Are you going to see what it's like to be in this car?" So, the exciting thing is I did get out of the car. I rode right seat at first, and then I somehow drove the car. I'd never even used a paddle shift before. So I think after a couple laps around Sonoma in that car, just in every way imaginable, the excitement was overwhelming to me. And the challenge, and I think I've always been really, I love taking on challenges, and I love to be able to, push myself. And it was clear that that was something that was really exciting to me, to the point where I don't think my entire flight home I was able to take the smile off my face. So that's simply how it happened. And I went on from there.
Another aspect of your background, which I'd love to learn more about, and I'm also curious to hear how it influences what you do both in the business and the racing side, is your service, your military service. Where did deciding to serve your country become an ambition or a goal? And how do you think your time in the Air Force has continued on or had a lasting effect in what you do?
Well, thank you for asking. I went into the Air Force quite young, when I was 17. And I had an interest. My father served in the Army. I had an interest in serving my country. And I served in, I would say, the entire part of my service was in Panama. And, for me as a young person, it gave me so much structure. It was amazing. It was really my first real job, if you will.
Oh, wow.
And gave me a lot of real respect for, the things I was doing. And being a medic in the Air Force is challenging. And I ended up working in the emergency room at Gorgas Army Hospital. And that's quite challenging for someone young. But it helped me understand work ethic and respect. And, that's carried with me, I think, through my whole life. I don't live a big life. I imagine people think I do, but I actually work very hard and still, tuck my sheets in the military way. And so, but that's been really one of the greatest experiences of my life, and the camaraderie, the friendship, the teamwork is just one of the special parts of my life.
So how do you transition, Jackie, from military service early on? Do you then take that experience and then move that straight into your scholastic endeavors? And I realize I'm bouncing around a little bit here, but again, this is just a conversation among friends. Where do you go after you're done serving? Do you go straight into to college, or do you take some time and just breathe a little bit? What was that part of your life like?
I actually went straight into college.
You're an animal. I love it.
Which was good for me, and I had the benefit of having some help through my service, and graduated from my first 4 years of college. And I you'll be happy to know I took a year off and traveled through Southeast Asia.
Okay, good.
But then I applied for graduate school and was able to get a fellowship.
So I think there's a theme emerging here, which is reaching very, very high from the time you were a teenager, and it seems like that fits your decision to start driving race cars, then get into more organized functions. I mean, when I first learned about you, you were coming into IMSA's the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series. Was that something where you would say was another mental acknowledgement that, okay, this is a big task, but I've done a lot of reaching high and achieving. Let me see if I can fast track my goal towards professional racing?
Well, it's almost complicated. I mean, I came into racing late. I want to acknowledge that. And, there's the term gentleman driver. And I don't know that I had an organized thought in my mind to go straight into IMSA. I had an organized, and I did at the time when it was Red Bull. I raced rallycross here in the U.S. as well.
Oh, wow.
But for me, sitting back and watching racing and the different series and of course meeting all of the amazing people that I've met in racing, it's remarkable people. I had a vision at some point to put together what I thought would be an effort that would be, something up my alley. But I have to say, it's from a time budget perspective, it took a lot longer than, I certainly anticipated. It certainly is not easy to do something like this, to work through a partnership like this. So, I don't know that I really thought it out as well as you're pointing out, but I think
go with it. Just tell folks, oh yeah, it was a master plan. I came over 20 years ago.
But the end result is just is something I'm very proud of.
So I know that you have worked with some women who have definitely achieved very positive things in their careers in motor racing. I also know that you have partnered with a team in the Shanks, Mr. and Mrs. Shank, who have, I think, earned a reputation as just some damn fine human beings. Outside of motor racing, just the Shanks are as good a people as you're going to find. Mike Shank is obviously the face of the organization. His new partner, Mr. Meyer, is there as well, but Mike's wife is also someone who is just as big a player in that organization. How did you two come together or start talking? Because I think of folks coming together, and this seems like a perfect fit.
Yeah, thank you. And to your point, Mike, his wife, Jim Meyer, just incredibly great people. It came about, I think, because once I started to understand that I'd found the right fit in a partnership to bring this effort together, it made sense to talk with various teams. And I think several factors played into this, not the least of which is Mike's reputation, his kindness, his supportiveness towards, what I was attempting to do. But, you have Catherine Legg, who's racing with the Meyer-Shank organization, doing really well in a car that she's very familiar with. And really, part of this is about having the right building blocks to put all the partners together to build a successful program. So that's really how we connected, and it's been such a joy for me. So, and I got to spend time at the race with them and sit with them during the race and learned a lot, and it was a great experience.
So, outside of the ambition to put together a team of your own, you also obviously needed to find corporate support to make that possible. Of the other things that I think folks have been really amazed with so far, Jackie, is you haven't just announced, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm going to drive, it's going to be fun. It's, hey, I'm establishing my own entry, working with the MSR team, and we are going to have a name, Caterpillar, on the car. It's not, Joe Bob's truck stop. It's freaking Caterpillar. I mean, this is a serious, So doing that on your first foray, the launch of your very first season in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, I think that's another thing that has folks going, all right, this is really unique. Tell us about that. I wouldn't ask obviously the business details, but how do you start the conversation with a major company like Caterpillar and get them to come in and be a part of this pretty cool program?
Well, as I said, I've been working on this for a couple of years. I mean, from a time budget management perspective, that's a mighty road.
Yeah.
And I know every driver, every team understands this. It's very hard to find the right partners, and so everyone knows this is a very difficult thing to do. And I'm no exception, and it was very hard for me, and it was a very steep learning curve. And although I have the opportunity of talking with companies, I came in racing late, so it's not, that's not an angle I can exactly pursue. But what I can do is I can talk to them about my vision, why it's important, deal with it head on, and, see if there is a corporate partner that understands the vision, understands what it is I'm trying to accomplish, and really feels that for them that's the right avenue based on their own internal initiatives. And that's essentially how this came about. And I have to say it's incredibly exciting, and I know it's exciting for Meyer Shank. I know it's exciting for the drivers. I like to feel like I lent my time and expertise to bringing together something that, is often just very hard to do for the athletes in these series. So.
And with that said, looking at how you're going to kick off this program in January at Daytona, you have 4 women who are going to be representing the team. You are also working full season with Catherine Legg, which I think is going to be awesome. Tell me a little bit about reaching out and connecting with Simona Di Silvestro, for example, or Bia, and making this, I think, what I wouldn't be hesitant in saying, I think you might already have the most popular lineup for the Rolex 24, and we haven't even turned a lap of practice yet.
Yeah. Well, suffice to say, I'm probably the one that has the biggest climb here. But I have, to your point, I have 3 amazing people to work together with, including an incredible team and a supportive team. I connected with Bia a couple years ago, and really only my vision was always actually to work with Catherine, Anna Beatrice, and Simona, but I really had to get farther down the line in the partnership, otherwise there's really nothing to talk about. So once I knew that had come together, it really came down to working with Catherine to reach out, determine everybody's schedule and interests, and the great news is that everybody was in, basically, and that to me was really the sort of the big part of my vision, was to bring all these parts and pieces together.
Let's expand on that just a little bit with the driver lineup, Jackie. I've known your teammates for quite a while, and what stood out to me in the announcement was this is a team of racers. My gender aside, or almost gender being something that I think most people should not really take into account much, because if we look at Kat, badass race car driver. We look at Simona as hardcore, tough, and awesome as you're going to find. Same thing with Bia. Is that something that happened by chance, or something that you said, I want the best, but also women who will be received as pure hardcore racers, not maybe some who are looking to play up femininity to attract attention to their motor racing?
The answer is the best, the credibility. Bringing together the correct partnership to go in and do what we do as racers. So for myself, if I separate myself momentarily from the team, from a partnership perspective, I'm a scientist, and also racing with not nearly the same experience as the other three women. But from the perspective of this partnership, there is a lot to do too with being a role model scientist for a company that works with engineers and is engaging a lot of new interests within the company. And so for me, I didn't take it in any other way than head on as a professional effort.
So let's close on the final couple of items here, Jackie. So as you've mentioned, you are the newest to this ensemble here. What is the rest of your year going to look like in terms of testing, any coaching with Kat or whomever else? I know you want to get to Daytona and be as prepared as possible, but what's the plan you're working on to make sure you get there and have as positive a feeling on that front as you can?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Yes, we are testing leading up to the Roar, and yes, plenty of coaching, plenty of work with the team, plenty of work with Catherine, and every effort is being made to work on my part of this, and I'm applying the same work ethic and diligence and tenacity that I did in working to find the right partnership to make all this possible.
So as you look ahead to 2019, Jackie, what comes to mind in terms of both goals and also, I don't know if impact is the right way to put it, but I know you're not just going racing for pure personal glory. You obviously want to represent your sponsors as well as you can. I know, as you mentioned, you also want to be a role model and hopefully inspire. You're going to try and roll all these things into some sort of, come out, meet the team, STEM type functions. Just curious, what are you hoping to achieve as a race car driver and team owner, but also maybe to have a wider impact as well in year one?
Yeah, one of the things that we would love to do, and we're discussing at the moment, is we would love to bring in engineer interns into the team. There will be, several things that we'll do trackside with our partnership in terms of some of the activation we're going to be involved in. But I think it's really great for people to be able to see, that you can do, you can work on many things, and, if you put the time in and the effort in, you can succeed. And I know that sounds a bit cliche, but, at the end of the day, it is really a great thing to be able to watch. Certainly, as I said, I've got a lot here. I've got to really figure out how to do this. So I think that's part of the excitement of the story is it's the equivalent of almost climbing Mount Everest on the driving side. So to me, I think all of it's going to be engaging. I think the four women involved here have all accomplished amazing things in their lives. The team owners are amazing and accomplished. Everybody involved in the team. So from my perspective, there's just a lot to look to and appreciate.
So we're talking about a scientist, a military medic, a highly educated, multiple degree wielding, business founding, biotech pioneering race car driver. That sounds about right. And new sports car team owner and co-driver. I like what you're doing here, Jackie. This is going to be a fun ride, I think.
Well, when you put it that way, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited. I think this is really great for the team. I think it's great for everybody in the IMSA organization, all the athletes. I think bringing attention to the sport in any way imaginable is important. So, it's really, for me, it's been an incredible accomplishment, I have to say, but I'm incredibly grateful to a partner that identifies with the vision and has committed so by their support.
Well, can't wait for 2019 to get here, Jackie. Can't wait for this team to hit the track and for you to start this journey. And also very, very thankful that we all get to watch, and hopefully not too long from now we'll be hearing about others who learned about IMSA racing as a result of what you are doing in your program, and we'll have more coming in, men, women, STEM, you name it. I think there's some pretty cool stuff that can happen here on and off the track. So thank you for taking some time here to let us get to know you a little bit before we even start the fun part, which is the racing.
Yeah, well, thank you. And what you said all the way around, I agree. And I'm looking forward to it, and looking forward to, hopefully widening that exposure. And I really appreciate the interview today. And that was Jackie Heinricher. I really think her journey coming in is going to be a lot like that of John Bennett, owner of Core Auto Sport. And if you recall, when he did enter the America Le Mans Series back in the day, jumping into that PC class, he was a serious liability when it was his turn to drive the car. It's not because he was a bad person. It's not because he lacked talent. It's just that he was at the very, very early stages of transitioning into a pretty serious thing like professional sports car racing. Took a few years. We're at a place now where John, again, might not be a bullet among bullets in the IMSA prototype class, but he can certainly hold his head high whenever he's in the car. It's taken years, though. It's taken a lot of effort, taken a lot of training, and I think we're going to see a similar arc for Jackie, knowing that she's going to have Catherine Legg as a coach, as a teammate, as a mentor. She's going to be in great hands. But she also admittedly knows that she's coming in at the deepest of deep ends. Also, looking at what IMSA's GT Daytona category has become, it is meant to be a Pro-Am class. Boy, even the AMs. Most of the AMs look like or feel like pros. Or we're not taking Patrick Long down, Brian Sellers down, but definitely she's going to be in for a tough year, if not 2 years, 3 years. Hopefully this is a multi-year thing. She's in for a tough ride, but it's also kind of cool. Not everybody comes in at the same place, and so I'm hoping you all will get to ride along with her and follow along and see what her journey is like and support her throughout it, because what she wants to do here, it's very important, means a lot to the series. A new person coming in, bringing a valuable sponsor, also helping to stoke business for one of sports car racing's long-term entrants like Michael Shank. Everything here is a positive. So really glad that Jackie spent some time, and hope that you enjoyed our conversation. All right, I'm Marshall Pruett. This is the Marshall Pruett Podcast, presented by Cooper Tires. Thank you for listening.